Something's shifting inside you that nobody around you can see. Your favorite song plays, and you feel like you're listening through cotton. A friend reaches out, and the energy required to respond feels monumental. Those goals you set earlier this year sit in your notes app like artifacts from someone else's life. You're moving through existence like you're piloting a body that doesn't quite fit anymore. Everything requires triple the effort it should. Simple tasks feel complex. Normal interactions feel performative. And the most confusing part isn't the heaviness, it's that nothing actually broke. No crisis occurred. No dramatic event triggered this. Your life from the outside looks identical. But inside, you're operating on half power, and you don't know why. You're scared because you can't tell if this is clinical depression, complete burnout, or if this muted version of reality is just your new baseline. If this flatness, this complete absence of enthusiasm for anything is permanent. But what if what's happening to you isn't collapse? What if this numbness, this detachment, this feeling like you're spectating your own existence, what if this is actually the most crucial phase you've ever entered? Because here's what they don't mention about real transformation. It doesn't kick off with lightning bolt revelations. It doesn't show up with energy and certainty and a clear roadmap. It begins with a death, a gradual, uncomfortable death of the version of you that can't accommodate what you're becoming. And that death registers exactly like this. Like nothing lands, like nothing reaches you, like you've misplaced your ability to feel invested in anything. But you haven't lost anything. You're molting. Think about snakes for a second. When a snake outgrows its skin, the days before shedding are brutal. Its vision clouds over. It becomes withdrawn and irritable. It stops consuming food because nothing appeals. It hides because exposure feels dangerous. If you observed a snake in that state, you'd assume it was dying. But it's not dying. It's preparing. Its body is generating new skin underneath the old layer. Until that new skin is ready, until the old one has fully separated, the snake exists in this liminal state where nothing functions properly, where everything that used to be automatic now feels labored. That's your current location. You're not malfunctioning. You're in transition. Everything you're experiencing, the numbness, the apathy, the sensation like you can't access who you used to be, that's not the malfunction. That's the mechanism. Let me explain what's actually occurring. For years, possibly your entire existence, you've been operating on a frequency that wasn't authentically yours. You absorbed other people's aspirations and labeled them your own. You maintained connections out of duty and called it commitment. You chased achievements because they looked impressive externally and called it drive. Your system, your consciousness, your body, your energy, they complied. Because systems adapt. They compensate. They find ways to function, even when the fuel they're running on is counterfeit. But synthetic fuel eventually gets rejected, not because the engine is damaged, but because it was never designed to run on what you've been feeding it. When that rejection happens, it doesn't arrive with explanation. It arrives as void, as disconnection, as total loss of interest in everything that used to motivate you. Your essence isn't depressed. Your essence is rebelling. It's staging a quiet revolution against every borrowed ambition, every performance, every version of you constructed to satisfy people who were never going to be fulfilled anyway. That revolution doesn't feel empowering. It feels like loss, like mourning, like watching yourself evaporate. You don't know who's going to remain when the dissolution completes. But here's what you're missing. You're not evaporating. You're emerging. The old layer hasn't fallen away, yet so you can't perceive the new one forming underneath, but it's there. Stronger, more authentic, closer to your actual self than anything you've worn before. It's expanding, pressing against everything that no longer fits, creating this unbearable pressure that makes you want to escape your own existence. But you can't escape out. You have to shed out, and shedding requires remaining still long enough for the old layer to separate. That's why nothing stimulates you currently. Not because you've lost capacity for stimulation, but because your system is refusing to waste resources on things that aren't genuine. If what we're exploring here is resonating with you, if you're recognizing yourself in this description, I'd genuinely appreciate it if you'd subscribe to the channel. We're creating content for people in this exact molting phase who need to know they're not breaking but transforming. Your subscription helps us reach others navigating this same void. Please take a moment and subscribe. Now let's talk about what your system is actually doing. Consider it. The relationships that suddenly feel exhausting, those are the ones where you've been performing instead of existing as yourself. The ambitions that suddenly feel hollow, those are the ones you adopted because they appeared impressive, not because they ignited something real in you. The activities that used to numb you but now feel pointless, those are the avoidance mechanisms you use to dodge feeling what you're being forced to feel now. Your essence is running diagnostics, deleting corrupted programming, clearing out everything consuming space without serving authentic purpose. That clearing process registers as emptiness because you don't have reference points for space that hasn't been filled yet. You've been so accustomed to being full. Full of noise, full of obligation, full of other people's projections about who you should be. Emptiness feels like absence of life instead of presence of potential. I know what you're doing right now. You're trying to solve this. How to return to normal. How to reignite the passion or the drive or the version of yourself that used to care about things. Every resource you consume, every strategy you try, every piece of guidance telling you to just choose positivity or discover your purpose or practice gratitude, it slides off you like water off glass. Not because the guidance is flawed, but because you're in a phase where guidance doesn't function, where effort doesn't function, where force of any kind intensifies the problem. This isn't a puzzle you solve. It's a process you endure. And endurance right now looks like surrender. Surrender to the uncertainty. Surrender to the flatness. Surrender to the reality that you can't think your way out of a transformation occurring at the cellular level. Here's what's actually happening in your nervous system. For years you've been in hypervigilance mode, scanning for threats, monitoring for approval, calculating every interaction to ensure you're executing correctly, being sufficient, not disappointing anyone. Your nervous system has been running programming designed for survival, not living. That programming is exhausting. It requires constant input, constant validation, constant proof you're acceptable. So your system in its intelligence decided to shut that programming down. It stopped responding to external validation. It stopped giving you dopamine hits for things that weren't genuinely nourishing. It stopped activating you for performances that were depleting you, not because something malfunctioned, but because it's teaching you a new method. A method where you don't need constant stimulation to feel alive, where you don't need approval to feel valuable, where you can exist in stillness without interpreting it as death. But your conscious mind hasn't synchronized with what your body's executing. So your mind interprets the stillness as depression, the lack of external validation as failure, the absence of excitement as evidence you're broken. It panics. It attempts forcing you back into old patterns because old patterns feel safer than this unknown territory. But forcing doesn't function anymore. The old skin is too constrictive. You've outgrown it. Every time you attempt squeezing back into who you used to be, it hurts more because you're not designed to regress. You're designed to break through. So what do you actually do? How do you navigate this phase when everything feels pointless and you can't even remember what you wanted? You stop fighting it. You stop trying to logic yourself out of it. You stop comparing yourself to the version of you that had energy and clarity months ago, because that version was running on fumes, chasing things that didn't matter, operating from a frequency that was killing them slowly. Your system knew it. Your body knew it. Your soul knew it. They just couldn't get your attention any other way. So they removed the noise. They eliminated the distractions. They created this void, so you'd finally have no choice but to listen. And what they're communicating is this: What you want isn't external. It's not in the next achievement or the next relationship or the next version of yourself you're trying to become. What you want is freedom to stop performing, permission to be undefined, space to discover what activates you when you're not trying to impress anyone, not even yourself. Here's how you'll know you're moving through it instead of remaining stuck. You'll start noticing small shifts. You'll stop forcing conversations that drain you. You'll start declining without the guilt spiral. You'll feel less attached to outcomes and more curious about process. You'll crave solitude not as escape, but as homecoming. You'll stop performing your life publicly and start living it privately. You'll feel still, not in a dead way, but in a rooted way, like you're finally standing on ground that's solid instead of chasing horizons that keep moving. That stillness isn't emptiness. That's clarity. That's your authentic self starting to breathe after years of being buried under who you thought you had to be. Before we close, I want to ask something. If this message has touched something you've been unable to articulate, if you're seeing your experience reflected here, please subscribe to the channel. We're going deeper into navigating this molting phase in upcoming content, and staying connected means you'll have support as you move through this. Please take a moment and subscribe. The truth is you won't return to who you were. That's not tragic. That's the point. The old excitement was constructed on external validation and borrowed dreams. What's approaching is different. It won't be loud or frantic or desperate. It'll be quiet, steady, sure. The kind of aliveness that doesn't need to prove itself. The kind of passion that doesn't burn out because it's not being forced. When it arrives, when you finally step into that frequency, you'll understand why nothing could excite you before. Because you weren't available. You were too occupied performing, too occupied pleasing, too occupied being who everyone else needed you to be. But now you're creating space. And space is where new life grows. So if you're in this phase right now, if nothing excites you and everything feels flat and you're terrified this is permanent, I need you to hear something. This isn't the end. This is the beginning. You're not losing yourself. You're finding yourself for the first time without the noise, without the masks, without the borrowed energy that was never yours to run on. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it's confusing. Yes, it feels like dying. But on the other side of this molt is a version of you that doesn't need permission to exist. That doesn't contract to fit into spaces too small for your spirit. That knows what they want because they've finally gotten quiet enough to hear their own voice. The truth is this phase is temporary. It only feels permanent because you're in it. But one day soon you'll wake up and something will feel different. Not everything, just something. A song will land differently. A conversation will register. An idea will spark curiosity you forgot you had. You won't feel that desperate manic energy you used to call motivation. You'll feel calm, aligned, like you're finally moving with yourself instead of against yourself. You'll realize the emptiness wasn't taking anything from you. It was making room. Room for the real you. The one who doesn't perform. The one who doesn't chase. The one who knows their worth without needing the world to confirm it. That version is forming right now in the quiet, in the void, in the molt you're so afraid of. So stop running from it. Let it happen. Let yourself shed because the new skin waiting underneath, it's worth every uncomfortable moment of not knowing who you are right now. The molt has begun, and you're going to be unrecognizable in the best possible way.